It's not just a trade war anymore. It's a total systemic reboot. We are past the point of polite diplomacy or strategic ambiguity. The decree that hit the wire on December 21st wasn't a suggestion. It was a digital guillotine for any nation even whispering about a post-dollar world. The mainstream media is calling it a bold negotiation tactic, but let's be real, they're missing the forest for the trees. The raw math is staring us in the face. 100% blanket tariffs on the entire BRICS bloc. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now the new guys, Egypt, Iran, the UAE. It's an ultimatum that hasn't been seen since the gold standard died. Commit to the greenback or prepare to be severed from the largest consumer market in human history. The trajectory is undeniable. We're sitting here on December 26, 2025, and the shockwaves are already melting the tickers. The narrative they're feeding you is that this is about bringing jobs back. Bullshit. It's about the dollar or death doctrine. Think about the gravity of a 100% tax. That's not a tariff, that's an embargo with a price tag. If you're a company in New Delhi or Sao Paulo trying to settle a contract in local currency to save a few points on exchange rates, you just signed your own death warrant in the American market. And don't think for a second your wallet is safe. The projection models are already screaming. We're looking at a 1.6 to 3% spike in core inflation literally overnight as these costs flow downstream. Your grocery bill, your tech, your car, it's all collateral damage in a fight for the world's reserve currency. The administration is already touting $30 billion a month in tariff revenue, money pulled directly from the global supply chain and injected into the U.S. Treasury like an adrenaline shot. It's a massive redistribution of wealth disguised as a Made in America victory lap. But here is the part they aren't telling you, the part that the experts are too scared to touch. Everyone is focused on the 100% number, but nobody is looking at the hidden mechanism that makes this move irreversible. There's a ghost in the machine of global finance that just got activated, and it's about to turn the BRICS alliance into a circular firing squad, or a unified front that breaks the world in two. To understand how we got to this edge, you have to process what started back in late 2024, right after the election. It wasn't just a random Truth Social post on December 21st. This has been a slow-motion car crash 10 years in the making. Go back to 2015. That's when the first real cracks in the global dollar consensus started to spiderweb. We saw the rise of the petro-yuan, Russia getting kicked off SWIFT in 22, and then the Kazan summit in late 24, where the BRICS leaders basically stood on a stage and told the world they were building an exit ramp from the American financial system. The mainstream narrative back then was that it was all talk. They're too divided, the experts said. India hates China. Brazil is unstable. Russia is isolated. That was the lie we were fed, while the raw numbers were telling a completely different story. Between January and April of 2025, the average U.S. tariff rate didn't just tick up, it exploded from 2.5% to nearly 27%. That was the warning shot. By the time we hit the summer of 25, the administration had already pulled in $250 billion in tariff revenue. This wasn't a negotiating tactic, it was a fundamental restructuring of the American Treasury. Now, the standard argument from the skeptics is always the same. They'll tell you Trump is just posturing. He'll never actually hit India or Brazil with 100% because it'll tank the U.S. tech sector. Or they'll say the WTO will step in and declare it illegal. Let's destroy that right now with cold, hard logic. The WTO? It's a ghost. It's been functionally paralyzed for years, and the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, gives the president almost total authority to declare an economic emergency and do whatever he wants with trade. We already saw the Supreme Court oral arguments in November. The administration isn't waiting for a permission slip. They are operating on the might is right principle of the 21st century. And as for the "it'll hurt us too" argument, of course it will. The administration knows that. When they say it will all be worth the price, they are telling you to your face that your standard of living is a secondary concern to the survival of the dollar. Translate that into real-world pain. When you look at the 2025 data, we aren't talking about a red line on a chart. We're talking about the fact that Indian-made pharmaceuticals, the stuff sitting in your medicine cabinet right now, could literally double in price by next quarter. We're talking about South African minerals, Chinese electronics, Brazilian coffee, all of it getting slapped with a dollar protection tax. The easy fix everyone is hoping for? It doesn't exist. There's this false hope that BRICS can just pivot to the euro or the yen. But look at the liquidity. Look at the infrastructure. There is no other system deep enough to handle $30 trillion in global trade. It's like trying to move an entire ocean into a swimming pool. You can't do it without drowning everyone involved. So the world is trapped. The BRICS nations are staring at a 100% wall, and the U.S. consumer is staring at a massive inflationary spike. But the nuclear option isn't about the money. It's about a specific, terrifying mechanism that makes sure no one can ever leave the table. I know, it sounds impossible. It feels like we're watching a movie, but the math doesn't lie. The sequence is locked in. Let's look at the concept here, because if you don't understand the analogy, you won't understand why your life is about to change. Imagine you are in a toxic relationship with a partner who controls the bank account. For decades, you've provided the labor, you've cooked the meals, you've cleaned the house, you've done the heavy lifting. Your partner, they just write the checks. But because they own the bank, those checks are the only way you can pay for your car, your phone, your life. Eventually, you get tired. You and a few neighbors, let's call them the BRICS neighbors, decide you're going to start your own local barter system. You'll trade your garden vegetables for their mechanical skills. You're done with the bank. But then the partner finds out. They don't just scream, they don't just threaten to leave. They walk into the garage and they smash the car. They cut the power lines to your house. They tell you, if you want to trade one single tomato with the neighbor, you will pay me 100% of the value of that tomato, just for the privilege of living under this roof. That is the 100% tariff. It is a hostage-taking of global commerce. We are talking about a world where the house is so terrified of losing its status that it would rather burn the neighborhood down than let anyone move out. And why are the decision makers doing this? It's not because they're evil in the cartoon sense. It's because they are trapped by their own math. The U.S. national debt is a runaway freight train. As of late 2025, we are looking at interest payments that are starting to eclipse the entire defense budget. The only thing keeping the creditors from knocking down the door is the fact that everyone has to use the dollar. It is the oxygen of the global economy. If BRICS succeeds in creating a post-dollar atmosphere, the U.S. suffocates. So the administration has decided that if the world wants to breathe, it has to pay a 100% tax for the air. I know, it sounds like a conspiracy theory until you look at the raw data coming out of the shipping hubs in Singapore and Dubai this week. The pattern interrupt is happening right now. We are seeing ships literally idling in the middle of the ocean because the insurance companies don't know how to price the risk of a 100% tariff hitting the cargo before it docks. The domino effect is inevitable. Step A, the U.S. issues the decree. Step B, the BRICS nations realize their internal trade isn't enough to replace the American consumer. China's manufacturing engine, which is already struggling with internal debt, cannot survive a 100% wall. Step C, the friendly nations, the Indias and the Brazils, start to panic. They have to choose. Do they stand with the BRICS solidarity and watch their GDP vanish, or do they come crawling back to the dollar? The math says they crawl back, but at what cost? We are entering a period of economic totalitarianism. It's not about free markets anymore. It's about a centralized command where the U.S. Treasury dictates who gets to eat and who gets to starve based on their dollar loyalty score. And don't forget the empathy trap here. The leaders in the U.S. think they are saving the country. They think this is the only way to prevent a total domestic collapse. They are willing to sacrifice the global supply chain to save the domestic dollar. They're trapped in a prisoner's dilemma where the only move left is the nuclear option. The data stream is glowing red. The trajectory is set. The smart money is already moving into hard assets and localized supply chains because they know the global village just got a 100% fence built around it. I know, it's a lot to process, but we have to look at the ugly truth of what comes next. We are past the point of speculation. As the clock ticks toward 2026, the ugly truth is that the statistical probability of a return to the old status quo is effectively zero. The data stream for the next 6 to 12 months isn't just a forecast, it's a collision course. The trajectory shows a two-speed economy that is going to tear the social fabric of the West and the East simultaneously. In the U.S., the raw math is brutal. We are looking at a $432 billion hit to the GDP by the end of this term, just from the dead weight loss of these tariffs. But the administration doesn't care. They've already seen the $30 billion a month revenue stream hitting the Treasury, and they're using that cash like a war chest to fund a massive domestic industrial pivot. But for you, the person on the ground, the next year is about the stagflationary squeeze. We're looking at core PCE inflation climbing toward that 3.1% mark by early 2026 as the 100% nuclear option ripples through the supply chain. Everything, and I mean everything that relies on a global component is going to see a price reset. It's not just more expensive, it's a fundamental repricing of reality. The vision of society in 2026 is one of fortress economies. The global village we were promised in the 90s? It's dead, buried under a mountain of decree-led protectionism. We are moving into a bifurcated world where you either belong to the dollar bloc or the BRICS buffer. In the dollar bloc, you'll see a desperate high-speed rush into AI-driven productivity to offset the loss of cheap labor from the East. We're already seeing it in the data. AI investment is the only thing keeping the U.S. GDP from a total sequential contraction. Society will become hyper-automated because we can no longer afford the human cost of globalized trade. In the BRICS buffer, you're going to see strategic rerouting become a way of life. China, India, and Brazil aren't just sitting there. They're building a shadow economy. They're moving their manufacturing up the value chain and relying on local currency clearinghouses to bypass the 100% wall. They are learning to live without the American consumer. The result? A world that is less efficient, more expensive, and deeply tribal. Now, let's talk heart to heart. What do you do when the math of the world breaks? First, you stop trusting the promises and start trusting the patterns. The patterns say that globalization was a temporary piece, and we are now in the reciprocal era. You need to build your own micro-resilience. Focus on your local community. In a world of 100% tariffs and severed supply chains, the person who knows their neighbor and has a tangible skill is the only one with real currency. Mental fortitude is your primary asset now. The mainstream narrative will try to keep you in a state of constant low-level panic to make you easier to manage. Don't let them. Process the data, accept the new reality, and adapt. We are moving from an age of just-in-time to an age of just-in-case. The digital truth is simple. The game has changed. The 100% tariff wasn't a mistake. It was the opening move of the final act. The dollar is fighting for its life, and the BRICS nations are fighting for a seat at a table they haven't built yet. Trust the patterns, not the promises. I'll see you in the comments.